The U.S. Justice Department released a report which is the most comprehensive federal accounting of the maligned police response to the May 24, 2022 shooting at Uvalde's Robb Elementary School. The report identifies cascading failures in law enforcement's handling of the massacre. It says that more than a dozen officers waited for over an hour outside classrooms where the shooting was taking place and did nothing as children lay dead or were dying inside.
75 minutes after the first officers arrived on scene, officers finally entered room 111. The subject engaged the entry team with gunfire, and the officers responded with fire. 77 minutes after the first officers arrived on the scene, and after 45 rounds had been fired by the active shooter, the shooter was killed.
The report further said that the police repeatedly communicated inaccurate information to grieving families. Family members of the victims hope that the report will help in finding the government accountable for the delayed police response.
I hope that the failures end today and that local officials do what wasn't done that day, do right by the victims and survivors of Robb Elementary, terminations, criminal prosecutions, and our state and federal government enact sensible gun laws, because Robb Elementary began the day an 18-year-old wasn't allowed to purchase an AR-15.
In America's worst school shooting in a decade, on May 24th, 2022, 19 young children and 2 teachers were killed when a teenage gunman went on a rampage at the elementary school. Since then, the police in Uvalde, as well as local political leadership, have been under intense scrutiny. For more on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani had sent us this report earlier. Take a look.
The delay in confronting the gunman meant that the 19 children and 2 teachers who were fatally shot did not receive immediate medical care. 1 teacher and at least 1 student who were seriously injured but found alive in classrooms later died on their way to the hospital. 17 other children were injured but survived. The question of whether, if swifter action was taken, more lives would have been saved continues to haunt the community in Uvalde. And 2 years on, even with this comprehensive investigation, there are no answers to the frustration of the victims' families. However, the most comprehensive bipartisan gun legislation in decades was passed on Capitol Hill. The New York Times talked to a grandfather whose 10-year-old grandson, Javier, died on that day, but he died on his way to the hospital, which was 40 miles away from that school. He said that they dropped the ball every step of the way. First, by not going into the classrooms sooner, and second of all, he believes if there was a helicopter to transport his grandson to the hospital that was so far away, perhaps Javier would be here today. He said, quote unquote, they dropped the ball every step of the way. He's looking for answers and accountability for some closure, which he says he hasn't received so far 2 years on. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.